Have you ever found yourself unable to stop thinking about someone? Whether it's a former lover, a close friend who drifted away, or someone who once meant the world to you, their presence lingers in your mind, uninvited yet constant. It's as if they've become a thread woven into the fabric of your thoughts, pulling at your emotions, influencing your actions, and sometimes even shaping your dreams. Why is it so hard to let go of certain people, even when the relationship has long since faded? This isn't just about love or friendship. It's about the deep connections we form and the imprints they leave behind. It's the unspoken words, the unresolved endings, and the shared memories that become a part of us. These relationships, whether romantic or platonic, anchor themselves in our minds, creating a mix of longing, regret, and sometimes even obsession. In today's video, we'll explore why certain people remain etched in our thoughts, from the deep bonds of love to the complexities of friendships and even fleeting connections. Through psychological concepts like attachment theory, projection, and the Zeigarnik effect, we'll uncover why these ties feel unbreakable. And, using the wisdom of Stoic philosophy, we'll learn how to untangle these connections, let go of what no longer serves us, and find freedom in the process. If you've ever felt trapped by the memory of someone, stay with me until the end. Together, we'll unlock the tools to reclaim your peace and build relationships rooted in mutual respect and balance. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Victory Stoic for more empowering insights. Leave a comment with the words, "I choose peace and clarity," to declare your commitment to emotional freedom. Let's embark on this journey together. Number 1. The Phantom Effect. Once upon a time, in a quiet, mist-covered village, there lived a storyteller named Eris. Eris was known for weaving tales that captivated hearts, but his greatest story was not one he told, it was the one he lived. For years, he was haunted by the thought of a woman named Elena. Her laughter, her smile, the way she would tilt her head when she listened, it all lingered in his mind, even long after she had left. Elena wasn't just a person to Eris. She was a feeling, a memory of warmth and connection that seemed impossible to recreate. But the more he thought of her, the less certain he was that it was truly her he missed. One night, as he stared into the flickering firelight, he asked himself, "Why can't I let her go?" That night, in a dream, the village sage appeared and spoke to him. "Elena is not a person in your mind, Eris. She is a phantom. She is the embodiment of a moment you once cherished, a reflection of the love, security, or joy you experienced in her presence. But she is not the key to reclaiming it." Eris woke with a start, the words ringing in his ears. The sage's wisdom lingered. Elena was not the ghost haunting his thoughts. She was a vessel for something deeper, a connection to a past he could not recreate but longed to relive. She reminded him of a time when life felt simpler, when love felt limitless, and when he believed he was invincible. The Phantom Effect teaches us that sometimes the people we can't forget are not about who they are but what they represent, a fragment of our past. They become a mirror to moments of joy or pain, a symbol of something we fear losing forever. Elena wasn't haunting Eris. His longing for a time that felt whole and unbroken was. The Stoics remind us to live in the present. Marcus Aurelius said, "Do not let your life be ruled by what is no longer here." Like Eris, we must recognize when someone in our mind is simply a phantom of a memory. Once we see this, we can honor what that memory taught us and release it to live fully in the now. Eris finally put down his pen and began a new story, not one of chasing phantoms, but of building a life filled with real, present joy. And just like that, Elena's shadow faded into the mist, leaving only the light of understanding and hope. Number 2, projection theory. Projection is one of those psychological phenomena that's quietly at work in the background, shaping how we see others without us even realizing it. At its core, it means we unconsciously assign our feelings, fears, or desires to another person. The person we're obsessing over might not truly be who they appear to us. They're a reflection of something inside ourselves. Think of it like watching a movie in a dark theater. The images on the screen feel so vivid, so real, but in truth, they're just projections of light and shadow from the projector. In relationships, particularly those that stay stuck in our minds, the other person often becomes that screen. What we see in them might be a reflection of something we're yearning for or struggling with internally. Here's a relatable example. Imagine you can't stop thinking about an ex. You tell yourself it's because they were perfect, irreplaceable, the ones who truly understood you. But when you dig deeper, you might realize that what you miss isn't them, but the sense of security they gave you, or maybe the excitement they brought into your life. You've projected your longing for stability, adventure, or validation onto them. It's not the person you're holding on to, it's what they symbolize to you. The Stoics give us a timeless tool to break this cycle. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Recognizing projection is about taking back that power. When you understand that the pull you feel is often about you, not them, you can begin to turn your focus inward. Ask yourself, what do they represent to me? What part of myself am I seeing in them? Maybe it's a desire for acceptance, a fear of being alone, or even a dream you've buried. Instead of obsessing over their role in your life, channel that energy into understanding your own needs. What are you longing for? How can you nurture that within yourself? Projection isn't inherently bad. It's a signal pointing you toward deeper self-awareness. When you recognize it, you stop chasing someone else to fulfill what's missing and start filling those gaps from within. In that moment, you don't just let go of them. You discover clarity, self-worth, and the freedom to move forward. Number 3, unveiling oxytocin, the hidden secrets of brain chemistry. Why is it that some people seem to linger in our thoughts, even when we know the relationship wasn't good for us? Part of the answer lies in the fascinating realm of brain chemistry, specifically a hormone called oxytocin, often referred to as the bonding hormone or love hormone. This little chemical powerhouse plays a massive role in creating and maintaining emotional connections, especially in relationships involving love, intimacy, or trust. What is oxytocin? Oxytocin is a hormone released by the brain, particularly during moments of physical or emotional closeness. It's most commonly associated with childbirth and breastfeeding, where it helps mothers bond with their babies. However, oxytocin doesn't stop there. It's also released during hugs, physical intimacy, and even prolonged eye contact, reinforcing feelings of trust, connection, and attachment. When oxytocin flows, it's like a glue that strengthens bonds. This is why you might find yourself thinking about someone long after the relationship has ended. Your brain still holds on to the chemical traces of that connection, replaying the feelings of safety or happiness you once associated with them. Example 1, the romantic bond. Think about a romantic relationship that felt intense and unforgettable, especially in its early stages. During those honeymoon phase moments, oxytocin levels soar, creating a deep sense of intimacy and attachment. You laugh at their jokes, feel butterflies at their touch, and believe you found the one. But when the relationship ends, your brain struggles to let go. Why? Because oxytocin forms a strong bond, and breaking that connection leaves your mind and body craving what it had before, much like a withdrawal from an addictive substance. Example 2, a close friendship. Even in platonic relationships, oxytocin works its magic. Suppose you had a best friend you always confided in, someone who hugged you through your toughest moments. Over time, your brain began associating them with trust and comfort, reinforced by oxytocin. If that friendship ended, you might find yourself missing not just their presence, but the feelings of safety and belonging they brought. What can you do? It's important to recognize that these feelings might not stem from true love or deep friendship, but from a chemical process in the brain. Understanding this doesn't make the emotions less real, but it does help you approach them with more clarity. When you catch yourself longing for someone who's no longer in your life, pause and ask, am I missing them? Or am I missing the feelings they brought me? Once you realize that part of your longing is simply your brain adjusting to a drop in oxytocin, you can begin to let go with compassion for yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth." Apply this to your emotions. Feelings of longing are valid, but they don't necessarily reflect reality. By focusing on what you can control, your thoughts and actions, you can slowly dissolve the chemical bonds and rebuild your sense of self, free from the lingering effects of oxytocin. Understanding the role of oxytocin empowers you to separate fleeting feelings from lasting truths, allowing you to move forward with strength and clarity. Number 4. Attachment theory. Why is it that some relationships linger in our minds, shaping our thoughts and emotions long after they've ended? The answer often lies in the psychology of attachment, a theory that suggests the way we bond with others as adults is deeply influenced by the bonds we formed in childhood. What is attachment theory? Attachment theory, developed by John Bowlby and later expanded by Mary Ainsworth, posits that the emotional bonds we form as children with our caregivers set the foundation for how we interact with others throughout our lives. Depending on how our caregivers respond to our needs, whether with love and consistency or neglect and unpredictability, we develop a specific attachment style that carries into adulthood. There are 4 primary attachment styles. 1. Secure attachment. Formed when caregivers are consistent, loving, and responsive. People with secure attachment tend to form healthy, trusting relationships as adults. 2. Anxious attachment. Arises from inconsistent caregivers, sometimes attentive, sometimes distant. This can lead to clinginess and fear of abandonment in adult relationships. 3. Avoidant attachment. Develops when caregivers are emotionally unavailable or dismissive. As adults, these individuals often avoid intimacy and struggle with vulnerability. 4. Disorganized attachment. Stemming from trauma or inconsistent care, this style combines both anxious and avoidant tendencies, creating fear and confusion in relationships. How attachment affects us in adulthood. Imagine a child who constantly had to earn their caregiver's attention. That child grows up associating love with anxiety, always striving to prove their worth. When they enter a romantic relationship, they might obsess over their partner's approval, unable to stop thinking about them for fear of losing their connection. On the other hand, consider someone with an avoidant attachment style. As a child, they learn to suppress their need for emotional closeness because it was rarely met. As an adult, they may subconsciously push people away, but still feel haunted by their memory, confused about why they can't let go. Attachment theory explains why certain relationships, especially difficult or intense ones, leave a lasting impression. The people we can't forget often trigger the same patterns we experienced in childhood, magnifying unresolved feelings and unmet needs. The path to understanding. Recognizing your attachment style is the first step to understanding why someone stays in your mind. Ask yourself, did they make me feel secure or anxious? Am I longing for them, or for the sense of safety I associate with them? By identifying the root of your attachment, you can start to untangle the emotional threads that bind you to their memory. It's not just about them. It's about how they fit into your deeper emotional blueprint. Healing through self-awareness. The Stoics remind us to focus on what is within our control. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Use this wisdom to reflect on how your attachment style affects your thoughts and actions. If you recognize patterns of anxious or avoidant attachment, seek to cultivate balance in your relationships. This could mean setting boundaries, seeking therapy to heal old wounds, or practicing self-compassion as you work through feelings of insecurity. Moving forward. Understanding attachment theory isn't just about letting go of someone. It's about letting go of the patterns that no longer serve you. By breaking free from these subconscious influences, you gain the clarity and freedom to build healthier, more fulfilling connections. Your past may have shaped your attachment style, but it doesn't define your future. With awareness and effort, you can transform the way you relate to others and, most importantly, to yourself. Number 5, anchoring bias, the psychological anchor. Why do certain memories or impressions about someone hold us captive, even long after the relationship has ended? This phenomenon, known as anchoring bias, is a psychological tendency where our mind fixates on the first memory, strongest impression, or most emotionally charged moment with someone. These anchors tether us to a specific perspective, making it difficult to see the person or the situation for what it truly is. What is anchoring bias? Anchoring bias is a cognitive shortcut where the brain clings to an initial piece of information or memory as a reference point. In relationships, this often manifests as the first time someone made you feel loved, the way they laugh during a shared moment, or the emotional high of a dramatic reunion. These moments become anchors in your mind, influencing how you think about the person, even when new experiences contradict that initial impression. For example, a romantic anchor. You might vividly remember the first time a partner held your hand or confessed their love. That moment felt magical, and it shaped your perception of the entire relationship. Even if the relationship later turned toxic, your mind might still cling to that first beautiful memory as evidence of your true self. A friendship anchor. Maybe a friend once supported you during a difficult time, becoming your emotional anchor. Even if the friendship has since grown distant or one-sided, that early act of kindness might make you hesitant to let go. Why do anchors hold us back? The problem with anchoring bias is that it can prevent us from seeing the full picture. By clinging to a single memory or impression, we risk ignoring the complexities of a person or relationship. We might hold on to hope that they'll return to being the person we first knew, or overlook repeated patterns of behavior that don't align with that idealized image. Breaking free from the anchor. The Stoics remind us to question the stories we tell ourselves. Marcus Aurelius said, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." The anchor isn't the person, it's your perception of them. To break free, you must shift your perspective. Here's how. 1. Reframe the anchor. Acknowledge the memory or moment, but view it as one chapter in a larger story, not the whole book. Remind yourself that people evolve, and relationships are more than singular events. 2. List the contradictions. Write down instances where their actions didn't align with the positive anchor. Seeing the full spectrum of their behavior can help you detach from the idealized version in your mind. 3. Create new anchors. Focus on building fresh experiences and relationships that align with your current values and emotional needs. These new anchors can help shift your mental and emotional focus. Moving forward, anchoring bias is a natural part of human cognition, but it doesn't have to define your perspective. By recognizing the anchor for what it is, a memory, not the full reality, you free yourself to see the relationship in its entirety. The person may have been an important part of your journey, but they don't need to remain the anchor holding you back from growth. Breaking free from these anchors isn't about denying the past, it's about reclaiming the present and steering your life toward a brighter, more authentic future. As you release the weight of old anchors, you'll find yourself navigating life's waters with clarity, strength, and freedom. Number 6. Fear of missing out, FOMO. Have you ever hesitated to let go of someone, not because they made you happy, but because you were terrified that letting them go meant losing something special? An opportunity, a connection, or even a version of the future you imagined. That's FOMO at work. The fear that by walking away, you're giving up on something unique and irreplaceable. What is FOMO? FOMO, or the fear of missing out, is a psychological phenomenon where we fixate on what we could lose rather than what we already have. It's the feeling that if we let go, we might be missing out on a chance at happiness, even if deep down we know the relationship isn't serving us. Imagine you've been in a relationship with someone inconsistent. Sometimes they're attentive and loving, but other times they're distant and dismissive. You know the relationship isn't healthy, but you can't stop thinking, what if they change? What if I let them go and they finally become the person I always hoped they'd be? Or picture this. A friend who used to bring laughter and joy into your life, but now drains your energy with negativity and drama. You keep holding on, thinking, what if I'll never have another friendship like this? What if they need me, and I'm the one who leaves? FOMO thrives on these what ifs. It keeps you tied to people, not because of their current value in your life, but because of the possibility of what they might bring in the future. How to overcome FOMO? 1. Acknowledge the reality of the situation. Ask yourself, am I holding on to who they are or who I wish they'd become? It's essential to separate your hopes and dreams from the actual behavior or patterns you've seen. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you always own the option of having no opinion. There is never any need to get worked up or to trouble your soul about things you cannot control. You cannot control their potential, only your response. 2. Recognize that not every opportunity is worth it. Letting go isn't about giving up. It's about recognizing that some opportunities, relationships, or people are not aligned with your growth. Imagine you're holding onto a rope that's burning your hands. The longer you hold on, the more it hurts. Letting go doesn't mean you've lost. It means you've chosen to stop the pain. 3. Shift your focus. Instead of fixating on what you might miss, focus on what you stand to gain: freedom, peace, and space for better opportunities. What if letting go of one unhealthy relationship opens the door to someone who truly values you? What if releasing the fear allows you to build a stronger relationship with yourself? FOMO is a powerful force, but it doesn't have to rule your decisions. Accepting that not every opportunity is worth holding on to frees you to make choices that align with your values and well-being. When you let go of the fear of missing out, you gain something far greater: the courage to choose what truly matters. Number 7. Cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is a mental tug-of-war. It occurs when your mind struggles to reconcile two conflicting beliefs, values, or perceptions. In relationships, this often happens when someone's actions don't align with your expectations of who they are, leaving you caught between holding on to the idealized version of them and accepting the reality. What is cognitive dissonance? At its core, cognitive dissonance creates discomfort because your mind wants consistency. When you believe someone is kind, loving, or trustworthy, but their actions prove otherwise, your brain resists letting go of the positive belief. Instead, it tries to justify or excuse their behavior to preserve your original perception. Example 1. A romantic relationship. Imagine you're in a relationship with someone who was incredibly attentive and affectionate at the beginning. They made you feel cherished, like you'd found the one. Over time, however, they began to neglect your needs, becoming distant and unkind. Your mind now faces two conflicting truths. 1. They are a loving person who cares for me. 2. They are acting in ways that hurt me. Instead of accepting the second truth, you might find yourself making excuses for their behavior. They're just stressed at work. Maybe I'm asking for too much. This internal conflict keeps you thinking about them, replaying scenarios in your head to resolve the inconsistency. It's exhausting and can trap you in an endless loop of justification. Example 2. A friendship. Consider a friend who once supported you during difficult times but now rarely shows up when you need them. You might think, they were always there for me in the past, they must still care. Why don't they make time for me anymore? Instead of confronting the fact that the friendship has changed, you cling to the good memories, unable to let go because it doesn't align with your belief that they're a true friend. Marcus Aurelius wisely said, "You must always remember this. What happens to you has been waiting to happen since the beginning of time." This means accepting reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. Here's how to apply Stoic principles to resolve dissonance. 1. Face the truth with logic. Write down the conflict. What are the facts versus your expectations? For example, fact: they consistently ignore my needs. Expectation: they should care because they once did. Accept that people can change, and actions speak louder than past behaviors. 2. Detach your worth from their actions. Epictetus reminds us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Their behavior doesn't define your value. Recognize that their inability to meet your expectations reflects on them, not you. 3. Let go of the idealized version. The person you thought they were might no longer exist. Release the version of them you've been holding on to and focus on building relationships with people who align with your current needs and values. Moving forward, cognitive dissonance is a natural response to conflicting emotions, but it doesn't have to control you. By using logic and Stoic wisdom to reconcile the gap between expectation and reality, you can free your mind from the loop of justification and move toward clarity and peace. Accept the truth. Not everyone will meet your expectations, and that's okay. Growth begins when you release what no longer serves you and embrace the present as it truly is. Number 8. The Zeigarnik effect. The Zeigarnik effect is like an annoying song stuck on repeat in your brain. It refers to your mind's tendency to fixate on unfinished tasks or unresolved situations. And when it comes to people who haunt your thoughts, it's often not about them. It's about the unfinished story they represent. What is the Zeigarnik effect? Your brain is wired to prioritize incomplete things. It sees an open loop and demands closure, like a movie that ends on a cliffhanger or a puzzle missing its final piece. In relationships, this means that if there is no clear resolution, no explanation, no proper goodbye, or no sense of "this is done," your mind keeps replaying it, desperate to tie up loose ends. The incomplete puzzle. Imagine someone you cared for deeply suddenly ghosted you. They disappeared without warning, leaving your mind racing. Was it something I said? Did I do something wrong? Were they ever really invested? The absence of answers becomes the unfinished task your brain can't let go of. Or think about a heated argument with a close friend that never resolved. Every time you think about them, your mind replays the argument, wondering what could have been said differently or how things could have ended better. That unresolved tension becomes mental clutter, occupying space in your thoughts like an unwelcome guest who refuses to leave. Why this happens? The Stoics teach us to value what's within our control and release what isn't. Epictetus said, "Some things are up to us, and some things are not." The Zeigarnik effect thrives because we believe we can resolve the unfinished story. We cling to the hope of closure, even when it's beyond our power to achieve it. But here's the hard truth. Closure isn't something you get from others. It's something you create for yourself. How to break free. 1. Write it down. Take a notebook and pour out every lingering thought about the person or situation. Write the questions you'll never get answers to. Write the anger, the hurt, the confusion. Let the act of writing be your way of closing the loop. 2. Acknowledge the unfinished story. Say to yourself, "I may never know why this happened, and that's okay. Their absence doesn't define my worth, and I release the need for an explanation." 3. Find your ending. Create a mental scene of closure. Picture yourself standing at a door, thanking them for the lessons they brought, and then gently closing it behind you. Imagine walking away into the sunlight, leaving the open loop behind. A tragi-comedic twist. Think of your unresolved relationships like a book you borrowed but never finished. The person might have left a bookmark in the middle, expecting to pick it up later. But guess what? They forgot about it. Meanwhile, you've been carrying the book around for years, hoping they'll return to finish it. At some point, you've got to realize that it's time to put the book back on the shelf. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. The Zeigarnik effect is your mind's way of seeking control over the uncontrollable. The moment you let go of the need for answers, you reclaim your power. Closure isn't about tying every loose end. It's about accepting that some threads will remain untied. And that's perfectly fine. Life isn't a neatly wrapped gift. It's a messy, beautiful tapestry. And when you embrace the imperfections, you finally free yourself from the mental loops that no longer serve you. Number 9. Avoidance mechanism. Hiding behind their memory. The mind can be sneaky. Sometimes instead of tackling the real problems in our lives, like a stagnant career, loneliness, or a lack of personal fulfillment, we fixate on someone else, imagining that their presence in our lives could solve everything. This is the avoidance mechanism at work, using thoughts of someone as a distraction to avoid confronting the areas of our lives that feel empty or uncomfortable. What is the avoidance mechanism? This psychological defense occurs when we focus on something external, like a past relationship or an idealized love, rather than facing the internal issues we need to address. It's easier to think, if only they were here, I'd be happy, than to admit, I need to fix my own life first. A common scenario. Imagine you're in a rut at work. You feel unmotivated, stuck in a job you don't enjoy, and unsure of what to do next. Instead of exploring ways to grow professionally or pursue a passion, your mind drifts to an ex-partner. If they were still here, you think, I'd feel inspired again. But here's the truth. Your ex wasn't the solution to your lack of purpose. They were a convenient distraction from the deeper issue of feeling unfulfilled in your career. Or consider this. You feel isolated and lonely. Instead of building new friendships, joining a club, or pursuing a hobby, you idealize a past love, thinking they could have filled the void. In reality, even the most perfect relationship couldn't fix the sense of emptiness that comes from a lack of connection with yourself or others. Why this happens? The Stoics understood this tendency to avoid what's uncomfortable. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Your mind clings to the image of someone else because it feels easier than taking control of your own life. But true strength comes from facing the fears and discomfort you're trying to avoid. How to break free from avoidance. 1. Identify the real problem. Ask yourself, what am I avoiding by thinking about them? Maybe it's the fear of failure in your career, the discomfort of loneliness, or the challenge of finding new interests. Naming the issue is the first step to addressing it. 2. Take small, real steps. Instead of losing yourself in fantasies of how things could have been, take tangible actions toward improving your current situation. For example, if you're stuck in your career, explore new skills or opportunities. If you're lonely, make a plan to meet new people or reconnect with old friends. If you lack hobbies, try something new, painting, hiking, or even just reading a book. 3. Detach from the fantasy. Recognize that the person you're thinking about is not the answer to your problems. Repeat to yourself, their presence won't fix my challenges. Only I can. A relatable example. Think of someone stuck in their 20s, scrolling through Instagram, feeling like everyone else is thriving. Instead of addressing their stagnation, getting out to network, learning a new skill, or seeking therapy, they daydream about an ex who made them feel confident. But here's the reality. Even if that ex returned, they couldn't magically transform the circumstances of stagnation or lack of self-growth. Epictetus reminds us, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. The path to fulfillment lies not in someone else's presence, but in taking responsibility for your growth. Moving forward. The avoidance mechanism isn't about them, it's about you. Their image is simply a shield your mind uses to protect itself from discomfort. When you acknowledge this, and start working on the areas of your life that feel stagnant or unresolved, you regain control. And here's the beauty of it. As you focus on your growth, the need to dwell on it fades. You begin to build a life so full of purpose, joy, and connection that you no longer need to hide behind your memory. Instead, you step into the present, stronger and more fulfilled than ever. Number 10. Habitual thinking. The mental groove. Sometimes, the reason you can't stop thinking about someone has nothing to do with them being special. It's simply because your brain has made it a habit. Like a well-worn path in the forest, your thoughts naturally wander back to them. Not because it's meaningful, but because it's familiar. This is habitual thinking in action. What is habitual thinking? Your brain loves patterns. When you think about someone repeatedly, it's like carving a groove into your mind. The more you think about them, the deeper that groove becomes, and soon your brain starts returning to it automatically. They become your mental default, someone you think about when you're bored, stressed, or just zoning out. Imagine this. You're on your daily commute, stuck in traffic. Instead of focusing on the music playing or brainstorming ideas for the day, your mind drifts to that person. Maybe it's an ex, a crush, or even a friend you haven't spoken to in years. You replay conversations, analyze their words, or imagine what could have been. Why? Because your brain has gotten used to thinking about them. It's not about them being irreplaceable. It's just a mental loop your mind finds comfortable. Or consider this. Every evening before bed, you scroll through their old messages or social media profiles. Over time, this becomes part of your nightly routine, like brushing your teeth. Now, even when you don't actively want to think about them, your brain pulls you back to that groove because it's the path of least resistance. Why it happens? Your brain thrives on repetition. Just like habits form in your daily life, grabbing coffee in the morning, checking your phone as soon as you wake up, your thoughts can become habitual too. And breaking mental habits can feel just as challenging as quitting coffee or limiting screen time. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." To change the quality of your life, you must change your thought patterns. Breaking the habit of thinking about someone requires conscious effort and redirection. How to break free. 1. Notice when it happens. Pay attention to when your mind drifts to them. Is it during idle moments, like driving, cooking, or lying in bed? Awareness is the first step. 2. Redirect your focus. Replace the mental groove with a new, healthier one. For example, instead of thinking about them during your commute, listen to a podcast or audiobook. If bedtime is your trigger, read a book or meditate to create a new wind-down routine. 3. Start a new hobby or goal. The best way to break a habit is to build a new one. Pick up an activity that requires focus, like learning a language, starting a fitness routine, or even gardening. The more time and energy you invest in this new habit, the less space your brain will have for old patterns. Imagine you've recently ended a relationship, and thinking about your ex has become your mental default. Instead of replaying memories while cooking dinner, you decide to learn a new recipe every week. The act of focusing on chopping, seasoning, and timing draws your attention to the present, gradually replacing the old mental loop with something productive and enjoyable. The long-term payoff. Breaking habitual thinking doesn't happen overnight, but with consistency, it becomes easier. Over time, the mental groove that kept pulling you back to them fades, replaced by new, healthier patterns. Epictetus said, "First, learn the meaning of what you say, and then speak." Apply this to your thoughts. Question why you think about them. Is it because they're worth it, or because it's just familiar? When you recognize that it's merely a habit, you regain control. Your thoughts are like water. They flow where the channels are deepest. By consciously building new channels, you redirect your energy and attention to things that enrich your life. And soon, the memory of them will be just that, a memory, no longer a daily presence in your mind. Instead of dwelling in the past, you'll find yourself fully engaged in the present, living a life shaped by your choices, not your habits. Number 11. The scarcity effect, the myth of the unattainable. Once upon a time, in a vast and golden desert, there was a legendary oasis called Mirage. It was said that its waters were the sweetest in all the lands, capable of quenching not just thirst, but the soul's deepest longing. Travelers from far and wide braved the scorching sun and shifting sands in search of Miraga, chasing fleeting glimpses of its shimmering pools on the horizon. The story goes that one day, a wanderer named Kale set out to find this mythical place. He heard tales of its beauty and was certain that if he could just reach it, all his struggles would vanish. Days turned into weeks as Kale trudged through the endless desert, consumed by thoughts of the oasis. His thirst grew unbearable, but every time he thought he saw Miraga, it would disappear, leaving him more desperate than before. Finally, Kale stumbled upon an old hermit sitting under the shade of a lone tree. Exhausted, Kale asked, "Have you seen Miraga? I must reach it." The hermit chuckled and replied, "Ah, Miraga, many chase it, but none who find it are satisfied. It is not the oasis that holds value, it is your longing for it that makes it precious." Kale didn't understand. "How can that be? If I reach it, won't my thirst be quenched?" The hermit smiled. "Perhaps, but only briefly. Once you taste its water, you will see it is no different from any other. It is your desire, not its reality, that keeps you searching." The scarcity effect in real life. The scarcity effect isn't just a myth, it's a powerful psychological force. It tricks us into believing that things or people that are hard to attain must be inherently valuable. This is why a person who is distant, unavailable, or even unattainable becomes far more captivating than someone who is consistently present and kind. Imagine you're interested in someone who seems just out of reach. Maybe they're emotionally unavailable or always sending mixed signals. Instead of seeing their unavailability as a red flag, your brain interprets it as a challenge. If only I can win their affection, you think, it'll prove their worth and mine. Or consider a friendship that faded away, not because of any grand conflict, but because life pulled you in different directions. Instead of accepting the natural drift, you find yourself idealizing the person, believing their absence makes them more valuable than they truly were. The trap of scarcity. The scarcity effect feeds on our need for validation and our fear of missing out. It convinces us that what is hard to obtain is worth chasing, even when it brings more pain than joy. Like Kale in the desert, we become obsessed with the idea of what could be, rather than seeing things as they truly are. The hermit's wisdom echoes Stoic philosophy. Value lies not in what you chase, but in what you have. Here's how to escape the trap of scarcity. 1. Question the chase. Ask yourself, do I truly value this person? Or do I value the idea of winning their attention? The answer often reveals that it's not about them, it's about the challenge they represent. 2. Shift your perspective. Imagine you've already attained what you're chasing. How does it feel? Often, the imagined reward isn't as fulfilling as the pursuit makes it seem. This realization helps you see the situation more clearly. 3. Focus on what is real. Value the people and opportunities already present in your life. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Focus on abundance, not scarcity, and your mind will reflect that richness. Kale eventually stopped searching for Moraga and found solace in the shade of the hermit's tree. He realized that while Moraga might exist, its pursuit had blinded him to the beauty around him. The coolness of the shade, the whisper of the wind, and the taste of the water he already carried. Like Kale, we must recognize that the scarcity effect isn't about the object of our desire. It's about how our minds inflate its importance. When we let go of the chase, we find peace, clarity, and a renewed appreciation for the abundance already in our lives. So the next time someone feels unattainable, remember, their value isn't in their distance. It's in how you choose to see them and how you choose to value yourself. Number 12, the shadow theory. Facing the mirror of ourselves. Carl Jung, one of the most profound thinkers in psychology, introduced the concept of the shadow, the hidden, often repressed parts of ourselves that we choose to ignore, reject, or deny. The shadow isn't evil, it's simply the aspects of ourselves we're uncomfortable acknowledging. And sometimes, the people we can't stop thinking about representing this shadow, forcing us to confront what we've been avoiding within ourselves. What is the shadow? The shadow is the part of you that contains unspoken fears, insecurities, desires, or even potential that society, family, or your mind has taught you to suppress. It's the you don't want to admit exists, whether it's your jealousy, need for validation, or even your unexplored strengths. When someone lingers in your mind, it might not be because of who they are, but because they act as a mirror reflecting your hidden self. Imagine you're obsessed with someone who seems incredibly confident, almost arrogant. You might find yourself simultaneously admiring and resenting them. Why? Because they embody a trait you've buried within yourself. Your own need to assert your confidence or take pride in your achievements. Or perhaps you're fixated on someone who constantly makes you feel unworthy. They might highlight your own shadow, the part of you that struggles with self-esteem or fears rejection. Your mind latches onto them not because of love or hate, but because they force you to confront these hidden aspects of yourself. When you project your shadow onto someone else, you unknowingly give them power over you. You assign them qualities, good or bad, that are just reflections of your inner world. For example, if they seem perfect, it might be because you've suppressed your own belief in your potential. If they seem toxic, it might be because they highlight unresolved pain or patterns within yourself. The Stoics enjoin the line beautifully on this topic. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone can show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth by which no one was ever truly harmed." The truth includes your shadow. Facing it isn't harmful, it's liberating. How to do shadow work. 1. Acknowledge the shadow. Ask yourself, what do I see in this person that triggers a strong reaction in me? Whether it's admiration, resentment, or longing, write it down. These traits often reflect something within you. 2. Explore the root. Reflect on why this part of yourself feels hidden or suppressed. Is it because of societal expectations, childhood experiences, or fear of judgment? 3. Embrace, don't reject. Instead of fighting the shadow, integrate it. For example, if someone's confidence irritates you, explore how you can develop your self-assurance. If their toxicity hurts you, ask what boundaries you need to set in your own life. A mythical illustration. In Greek mythology, Narcissus gazed into a pool, falling in love with his reflection without realizing it was himself. The people we obsess over can become our pool of Narcissus, forcing us to see parts of ourselves we're not ready to embrace. But unlike Narcissus, we have the choice to step away from the pool and integrate what we see. Liberation through shadow work. Shadow work isn't about blaming yourself or glorifying others. It's about taking responsibility for your inner world. When you acknowledge the shadow, you reclaim the energy you've been giving to someone else. You stop chasing them, hating them, or idealizing them because you've found what you were looking for within yourself. As Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. By embracing your shadow, you don't just let go of someone who occupies your thoughts, you become whole. You realize that everything you need was never out there. It was within you all along. Number 13. The power of emotional memories. Emotional memories are like sticky notes on the wall of your mind. The more powerful the emotion attached to a memory, the brighter and stickier that note becomes, refusing to fall off no matter how much time passes. These memories can shape how we think, feel, and even act, but sometimes they cling so tightly that they stop us from moving forward. What are emotional memories? When you experience something with intense emotions, joy, love, pain, or sadness, your brain locks it in like a special file marked important. These emotional memories get stored more vividly than ordinary ones because your brain wants to help you learn from them, to repeat the good ones and avoid the bad ones. The problem? Sometimes the memory becomes so dominant that it clouds how we view the present. Imagine you're a child who touched a hot stove. The pain and shock of that moment create a powerful emotional memory. Years later, even if someone tells you the stove isn't hot anymore, you might hesitate to touch it because that memory is so strong. Now imagine this in a relationship. Let's say you had a partner who made you feel loved and cherished during your happiest moments. Maybe they held your hand while you watched the sunset, or they comforted you during a difficult time. Those moments tied to powerful emotions become sticky notes in your mind. Even if the relationship ends painfully, your brain clings to the good memories, replaying them like a highlight reel, overshadowing the bad parts. Why emotional memories stick? Emotional memories are like treasure chests, but they don't always contain gold. Sometimes they hold joy, but other times they trap pain, longing, or nostalgia. Your brain locks onto these moments because they helped you survive or thrive in the past. It's not your fault. It's just how humans are wired, how to soften emotional memories. The Stoics teach us to approach everything with a calm, rational perspective. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." This means that the memory itself isn't the problem, it's how you interpret and react to it. Here's how to approach emotional memories with neutrality. 1. Acknowledge the memory. Instead of fighting it, let the memory surface. Say to yourself, "This was a part of my life, but it doesn't define me now." 2. Separate the emotion from the event. Imagine the memory as a movie you're watching. You're the audience, not the actor. What happened was real, but it's no longer happening. By seeing it from a distance, you can reduce its emotional grip. 3. Rewrite the story. Take a moment to reflect on the memory with a balanced perspective. Instead of saying, "That was the happiest I've ever been," try, "That was a happy time, but it's okay to have new experiences now." Think of emotional memories like a snow globe. When you shake it, the glitter swirls everywhere, making it hard to see through. The glitter represents the intense emotions tied to the memory. If you let the snow globe sit still for a while, the glitter settles, and you can reapply again. The memory is still there, but it's no longer overwhelming. Moving forward, emotional memories are powerful, but they don't have to control you. By viewing them with neutrality and understanding, you can let them rest peacefully in your mind instead of dominating your thoughts. Remember, the past is a chapter in your story. It's not the entire book. As you release the emotional grip of these memories, you make room for new, vibrant experiences in the present, and that's where life truly happens. Number 14, the impact of rejection sensitivity. Why we fixate on those who reject us. Rejection hits harder than we expect. It's not just the pain of losing someone, it's the sting of feeling unworthy, invisible, or not enough. This is the essence of rejection sensitivity, our heightened emotional response to being turned away. Strangely, this pain often amplifies our fixation on the person who rejected us. It's as if our minds believe that obsessing over them will somehow mend the wound. What is rejection sensitivity? Rejection sensitivity is a psychological tendency to react strongly to perceived or actual rejection. When someone we care about distances themselves, whether it's a breakup, unreciprocated feelings, or even a close friend pulling away, our brain interprets it as a threat. The rejection doesn't just hurt, it makes us obsess. Why? Because rejection feels like an attack on our self-worth. To protect ourselves, we fixate on the person, replaying scenarios, analyzing their actions, and wondering what we could have done differently. It's as if our minds believe that solving the mystery of the rejection will restore our value. Imagine you're a student who didn't get picked for the team, even though you tried your best. You might not care much about the team itself, but you can't stop thinking about the coach who didn't choose you. Why didn't they pick me? Am I not good enough? The rejection doesn't just sting. It becomes a loop, making you focus more on the rejection than the bigger picture. In relationships, it's similar. Suppose someone you admired stopped texting you back. Instead of thinking, maybe it wasn't meant to be, you might spiral into questions like, was I too much? Not enough? What if I had done things differently? Your brain latches onto them, hoping that figuring it out will fix the pain. Why we obsess over rejection? Rejection taps into a primal fear of being excluded from the group, a survival instinct from our ancestors who relied on social bonds for safety. The Stoics, however, remind us that this fear is misplaced. Epictetus wisely said, "It is not events themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them." In other words, the rejection doesn't define your worth. Your reaction to it does. How to break free from rejection sensitivity. 1. Recognize the false narrative. Ask yourself, am I equating their rejection with my value? Their decision doesn't diminish your worth. It reflects their preferences, not your potential. 2. Reframe rejection as redirection. Every rejection is an opportunity to realign with people and goals that truly align with you. Instead of thinking, I wasn't good enough for them, shift to, they weren't the right fit for me. 3. Strengthen your sense of self. Focus on building self-worth that isn't tied to external validation. What are your strengths? What makes you unique? Celebrate these qualities, independent of anyone else's opinion. 4. Set boundaries for your thoughts. When your mind starts replaying the rejection, gently redirect it. Try a grounding technique, like journaling about your emotions or listing 3 things you're grateful for at the moment. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been. Rejection only hurts as much as you allow it to. By focusing inward, and cultivating your self-worth, you shift the power away from the person who rejected you and reclaim control of your emotions. Moving forward, rejection is inevitable, but it doesn't have to define you. By understanding rejection sensitivity and actively working to build your self-worth, you can break free from the mental loops that keep you fixated on someone who has moved on. Instead of seeking validation from others, find it within yourself. The stronger your foundation, the less power rejection has over you. Remember, rejection isn't the end. It's a chance to grow stronger, more self-assured, and more aligned with the people and opportunities that truly value you. Closing. The Stoics leave us with an unshakable truth. You cannot control others, nor the past, but you can always control how you respond. This isn't just a reminder, it's a call to action, a challenge to release the grip of what no longer serves you. Holding on tightens the chains, but letting go unlocks the doors to peace, clarity, and freedom. The past cannot be changed, nor can the choices of others. But your reaction? That's where your true power lies. Every person who lingers in your mind has left behind a lesson. Perhaps they were a mirror reflecting your strengths, fears, or unmet desires. Instead of clinging to the shadows of what once was, choose gratitude. Be thankful for what they taught you, good or bad, and transform that energy into hope. There's a brighter future ahead, one where your focus shifts from regret to renewal, from longing to purpose. Let this be your turning point. As you look back on the reasons why someone remains in your thoughts, whether it's science, psychology, or emotional memory, know that the answer isn't in them. It's in you. The freedom you seek comes not from finding closure in your actions, but in finding clarity within yourself. So today, commit to that freedom. Choose to untangle the threads that bind you to the past. Let those memories rest in peace, and let your heart surge with hope for what lies ahead. If this message resonates with you, take the next step. Hit like, share, and subscribe to Victory Stoic to continue this journey of empowerment and self-discovery. And don't forget to declare your commitment in the comments with the words, "I choose peace and clarity." By writing it, you're not just making a statement, you're setting yourself free. Thank you for walking this path with me today. Remember, your life is not defined by what others have done, nor by the weight of the past. It is shaped by the strength you find within and the choices you make moving forward. You have the power to build a life full of meaning, resilience, and joy. Until next time, stay grounded, stay strong, and keep moving toward the freedom you deserve.